Lorks a Lordy, it is the Tech Addicts Podcast. This week is threads from Facebook any good? NASA recycle we, the TCL Nextwear S glasses, OnePlus recent announcements, 24GB of RAM in a phone, and the price of the Pixel Fold. Ooh. Hello and welcome to the Tech Addicts Podcast. I am Gareth, the host, and this is Ted, the co-host.
Hello everyone, and welcome back again to our fortnightly romp through tech in a North Wales climate which is hot one day, cold the next, raining one day, not raining the next. At the moment it's really muggy and horrible, and that's the weather forecast from North Wales. We're expecting thunder this afternoon, rain, thunder and lightning, which should clear it all nicely. How about you?
Northern Ireland, and being very much every type of weather at all times during the day. If you just wait 5 minutes, you'll have something else. There's always something round the corner. How are things with Mr. Ted Salmon these days? You keeping well?
Yeah, I'm fine, thank you. Nothing much to report, really. Life ticks along, and I tick along with it, I suppose. And now I'm waffling to try and think of something to actually say that's of any interest to anyone. And I can't think of anything. I got a new fan. Would you like to hear?
Right. Does he write in frequently?
The only thing is that it's really noisy. Look, it's on. It works really well, but it's on 100% now, and it's just incredibly noisy. How it generates cold air from warm air, I've no idea, but it's very clever.
Oh, has your new fan been running for the last few minutes?
No.
Have you only just turned it on?
Just then, didn't you hear it?
Well, whenever you got up to go to the toilet earlier, I heard a fan go and I heard a bug. Like it hit the metal grate that's around the fan.
Well, perhaps I fell over it.
Well, you were away. I heard you struggling in the toilet.
This is becoming a bit distasteful, I think, for a Sunday morning.
True, but by the time people listen to it, it'll be Sunday evening.
You and your stories of throwing up on people's roofs, and which you were telling me offline. And now my toilet habits. People will be switched off by now already.
They will. Well, but if anyone went to my wedding, then they'll already know those stories because I was young and silly back then.
Yeah. No, it's all right, thank you. You had a weekend away. You had a good time?
That was all right. Just went down to Dublin, got fleeced, and came back up again because Dublin is a tremendously expensive city.
£9 for a pint of beer. I just couldn't believe it when you told me that. That's outrageous.
It's just to strip American tourists of whatever money that they have. It's dreadful, and they're happy to pay it for a pint of Guinness. That stuff was supposed to be cheap stuff that just got thrown at workers after work.
Well, it is if you buy it in Sainsbury's, but clearly in pubs they're ripping people off.
Yeah. You head up to the Temple Bar area and you're paying. I think it's around about €8 or €9 for a pint, which is crazy, absolutely crazy.
Anyway, there you go. One word of warning: I've left the window open, so watch out for train noises. Well, I've got my timetable out, so we'll keep track of it.
But they never run on time. I've always heard about Mick Lynch talking about that. Okay, well, we'll go into our feedback section where we have some feedback from some folks. Phillip Deackes has written in regard to at the top of the show last week I discussed how I purchased a NAS from Synology and my adventure with that, and my adventure continues this week. On this particular show. Anyway, Phillip Deackes says, "Hi Gareth, I started my NAS journey some years ago. I use it extensively and most of my services run in Docker. I suggest you look into Nextcloud rather than the built-in Synology services. Nextcloud is open source and free to use. It provides a cloud file service like Google Drive, but it also hosts your contacts and calendars, which can then be synced through CalDAV and CardDAV to use or to ask you about devices like phone, tablet, etc. If you set up OnlyOffice, you can edit and create Microsoft compatible documents through the web browser, again on any device. There are many apps that you can install from the Nextcloud too, and he's posted a link to mariushosting.com. Marius has lots of tutorials for installing all manner of things on the Synology NAS. If you need any help, please get in touch and he can give me some advice. I've just been sort of staggering through the whole idea of using a NAS, and I'm starting at the starting with being really amateur and novice, and just working through the Synology things to see what they can do, and I'll gradually expand and get more into it as time goes on. I found a website called was it Neelik NEELLIK.com. Who runs through a couple of tutorials on how to set up Docker and that kind of thing, and I've been following his guides, which I found to be slightly easier to follow than Marius, but because they're just simpler, and I don't require any thought outside of my own, or out of the outside of it, which is easier. It tells you where to get stuff from when you have to fill stuff in, which is great. And yeah, I've been expanding my NAS. Obviously, I was away last week, so I didn't get to do as much as possible. I now have 3 hard disks in there, 2 12 terabytes and 1 14, or it might be 1 12 terabyte and 2 14. I think it is. Yeah, I think it's that. I've also put in an SSD M.2 NVMe, 500 gigabytes for caching. So that things just run a lot smoother. I'm in a bit of a debate over the RAM at the moment, because there's 4 gigabytes that come in this unit, which is the Synology DS923 Plus. Synology recommends you use their RAM. I know you can use other ECC RAM, but you get warnings and things like that. But it's a price difference which is really getting me, because if I want to buy 4 gigabytes of Synology RAM, you pay somewhere between £70 and £90 for it, whereas if you go to Crucial, you could get 16 gigabytes for around about £30 to £40, which is crazy. But you just don't get this. You don't get the support. You don't get Synology won't touch you if you've gone and put in different RAM. So it's. I'm in half a mind about what I'm going to do there, and even if I need it, I want to see how the caching of the SSD works out, because essentially what it does is it takes the applications that are running in DSM, which is the operating system on the NAS, and it runs them from the cache. So they're all quite small, and you've got Plex and whatever else you happen to install, like Bitwarden, you can run that on there, or Radar and Sonar and LiDAR and all those sorts of things, Prowlar, and you can have them running out of the cache, and it'll speed it all up a lot, which is really nice. So I'll see if everything works quite nicely. I was running some tests over the last few days to see how well it streams 4K HEVC at 10-bit, and it does kind of struggle a wee bit, so going up into the bigger 4K kind of black streaming isn't great on this, and I know some of the other Synology NASs have additional graphics cards, or graphics support at least, integrated graphics, whereas this one doesn't. They went with a Ryzen that is a pure processor, as opposed to being able to do anything graphically intense. So it does have problems transcoding things on the fly. Ted, you were actually experiencing transcoding problems during the week with Plex, weren't you?
I was. I've never seen this before. Normally, when I turn my Plex on, I get this little wheel turn around. It goes to 33%, 99%, and then it starts. Always the same, 33, 99, start. And I guess that's the time it's needing to buffer the file and read from the card drive and send it to the router, and the router to send it back out to my Roku, and for it all to happen. This week, it just was stalling, and it was just... That 33.99% thing wasn't happening at all. It was going to all sorts of different percentages of reading. It was just taking forever. And I tried it with a few different MP4 files or MK4V files, and it did seem to be that the bigger the file was, the more it was having trouble. So typically I was using... I do try to keep my file sizes for my video files under 4 gigabytes for each one, so that it works with, with phones for one thing, and I can easily transpose them. The file in question I was using that day was nearly 4. It wasn't over 4, it was nearly 4. But when I was trying files that were 1 gigabyte and half a gigabyte and 2 gigabytes, it was not having the same trouble. So I can only guess that it's a bit of what you were talking about, that certain files are just really challenging to the system. Incidentally, it's completely back to normal now. So I also don't particularly understand how Plex works in terms of connectivity to the internet. So I was wondering, maybe my connection's bad, but it wasn't. The up and down speeds were okay. Maybe I thought maybe there's something wrong with my 16 terabyte Western Digital hard drive where the files sit, but no, and nothing had changed. It was just really, really weird. So I still don't really understand it.
Well, it's difficult to summarise quite quickly in a nutshell, but essentially where you see that there's something that's encoded with H.264, that tends to be a larger file, but it's still quite nicely compressed. You can get H.265. H.264 encoding is free for everyone to use, whereas H.265, the HEVC codec, is actually, you have to pay for that to be able to encode things with that. And it's owned by a conglomerate online, and you have to have the codec. That's why sometimes if you're playing something back on Windows, it might say you need to go and get the codec in order to be able to play this video back, and it'll direct you to the Windows Store, and you can get it there. But it makes it a lot smaller, and it's a very, very good codec. But you actually have to pay to use it, which not a lot of people realise. So H.264 is better just on the fly, but it'll occupy a lot more disk space. And whenever you encode if you're using handbrakes or whatever, and you've selected H.265, you can end up having a few more problems, because if you're backing up something really big like a 4K UHD, and you want to get a really good size to picture quality and audio quality ratio, H.265 is the one to use, but then things have trouble reading that because they may not have the codec installed au naturel.
I just didn't understand why up till now it's been absolutely fine, and then if what you're saying is true, then suddenly for some reason my files that I'm getting are encoded differently. Anyway, I'm
well,
still...
because if it's H.265, Plex will have to try and encode that or decode that back to H.264.
I understand that, but
on the fly.
I understand that, but what I'm trying to say is that surely after like 3 years down the line, it's unlikely that I've never had a 265 file before that's had to deal with. But maybe that's true.
But not one that has had trouble doing, where your one could have been a full 10-bit, really mega encoded and squished down, and it's taking full advantage of that codec to keep it at a reasonable size, but still have an amazing picture quality and sound.
Okay, all right, fair enough. I'll keep an eye on it anyway. But yes, in answer to your question, I did have some trouble this week. But thank you, Philip, for your feedback. That was really interesting to hear what you did. And you know what this confirms, of course, is that someone listened to the show.
Yes. Thank you, Philip. Thank you for your advice there. I did follow some of it, and I think I went and found something that was a bit more in my own lingo that I could understand better. But it's all an adventure, and I'll probably circle all the way back around to Marius hosting once I'm sort of up to speed and at your level of NAS usage. And then I can't wait to do certain things. We'll be coming back to NAS later on in the bargain basement, because there's something I've purchased this morning that I'm going to add into it as well, and it's another reason that I'm very excited about NAS. And I think one day probably Mr. Ted Salmon, whenever he's got a proper internet connection, he'll probably get a NAS too. I reckon he'll become a NAS holder.
Yeah. I can completely see the attraction, and if as you say, if I had a connection like yours, I would definitely be dabbling in stuff like this. It's just that it's different from me on being on cellular the whole time.
But I'm coming to it at this time whenever Docker is on there, and I can't imagine how people dealt with things beforehand. You know, I guess I'm coming at a luxury time. Where it's all dead easy to do,
right?
As long as you get your head around the sort of initial impact of this isn't Windows, it doesn't operate like Windows, so you know you've got to do things this way instead.
Yeah.
But I think just going forward, if you ever come to do it, it'll probably be so much easier again, where you just click a button and it happens.
Yeah,
you know, Linux is becoming so much easier for people to use.
Unlike the complicated way in which Ian Barton seems to be doing things. He's talking about...
He likes a challenge.
I think he's mentioned backup PC before. Anyway, he's mentioned it again, and it's very interesting stuff. Open source backup to disk. This is very useful for backing up your data to other computers and servers locally. It can also back up to servers that are accessible remotely, says Ian. I back up my important data from my main computer to a couple of local servers. You can configure it to keep incremental backups, so you can roll back to an earlier version of documents, spreadsheets, etc. if you need to. It's compatible with most operating systems, and since the system is so flexible, it does take some time to configure, and also, this is where I get lost, requires tinkering with the Apache web server setup. So that's back over to you with that one.
No, I can't help you. I'm completely lost when it comes to this. But it sounds like something that you would want to do, where you've got backups of backups of backups of backups.
Yeah. It certainly would. I'm okay with my backup system, to be honest, but I know that Ian in the past has spoken about echoing backups onto RAID stuff and all the rest of it, and he obviously knows what he's doing. And when it comes to it, I'll get him to come round. He doesn't live far away. He's visited me once before, so I'll get him to come round and do it for me.
Brilliant. And the last one we got in was from Paul, who says, since my complaint of referencing the phone show, have you heard of the phone show, Ted?
No, PSC.
Oh, okay. I feel that every show there is a mention or comment when phones are discussed. Just to make me feel more apologetic, could you make the reference to Mr. Wilmot from old Top Gear? That way I will know when you're ridiculing me even further.
We're not ridiculing you.
Love the show. Podcast, one of my favourites by far. Thanks, Paul, for writing in. Yes, we certainly will reference you, because it's all your fault. I'm just having a look at the show notes now, and there are a couple of phones, but not as many. Dear. So, you know, I think people should listen to the phone show if they want to hear phone stuff. But there's still some phones in there, peppered in there, just to annoy you. Yeah. We're covering some that aren't touched on the phone show.
We are,
Not to double dip, because we've got our knuckles wrapped.
In fact, I only put things into the show notes, I don't know about you, which we haven't discussed on PSC, because Mr. Wilmot will get angry.
Yes. And it's very difficult for me to put things into the show notes, because I don't know what they talked about, because phone show was only just recorded last night, and it's not out by the time we do this. So if I stick things in, Ted will go, oh, we discussed it last night. He won't tell me very He'll just tell me when we start discussing it.
Oh, dear.
The rascal.
I am very sorry.
Right, moving into the hard line for the hardware. Thanks, everyone, for writing it. I have put this at the top of the show because I wanted to have a wee discussion about it, first and foremost, because there was the whole thing that came out during the week about Martin, what's-his-face, Martin Lewis, and his deep fake. And it got me thinking, I'll go and have a look at their website, Money Savings Expert, and have a look and see what they recommend you do if you want to pick up a Pixel Fold. Because I keep looking at it going, I would like one. I don't want to have to pay that amount of money out of my dwindling bank account. But, if I could get a nice contract deal because my Pixel 6 Pro contract is coming to an end, I'll go and see what the best deals are on the Pixel Fold, as recommended by Money Saving Expert. Mm-hmm. And the top deal is with O2, and you get the 256 gigabyte version of the Pixel Fold. You get 5 gigabytes of data per month, which is, well, shit.
Not enough.
Unlimited minutes, unlimited texts. It's a 24-month contract. You pay £30 up front, and then you pay £91.63 per month for the next 24 months, meaning the total that you pay is £2,229.12.
But but you need to take off what you would have been paying for connectivity with another deal from that.
Yes.
So it might sound like a lot, but the phone is £1,800 to buy it in cash, and that's giving you £400 on top of the price of the phone spread across. But you would have been paying more than that probably for what your present stuff is anyway. See what I mean?
Well, no, I do. So that £400, if we were to divide that by 24, that means you're paying £16 a month for that contract, which is 5 gigabytes plus unlimited minutes and unlimited text messages for 24 months,
right? Which
is a bit wick.
Okay.
I'd maybe say that contract might. I don't even think that would be a £5 one on gift gaff for 5 gigabytes of data.
No.
So for you to get a decent unlimited one, let's just go to the best one that they recommend from 3, which is 256 gigabyte version of the Pixel Fold, unlimited 5G data, unlimited minutes, unlimited text messages. Now this is a 12-month contract. You pay £85 up front, and then it's £158 a month.
Okay.
Which works out quite a bit better. That means you're only paying £1,981 in total over the 12 months.
Yeah.
Not 2 years.
It's still a lot of money every month, though, isn't it?
It is, absolutely. A time whenever people are scrimping around trying to pay their mortgages, and these phones are coming out that are over £100. Most of these deals, well, they're all over £90. And the highest they go is £158.
Where's EE? Wasn't EE on this?
Yeah, fair enough. It is Vodafone, O2 and 3. It's not EE. Mm-hmm. Yeah. I imagine they probably just are too expensive.
Right.
But yeah, it's a bit worrying that if you think about 10 years ago, whenever the iPhone was coming out, and people were paying big money for the latest phone. It's nowhere near the amount of money that people are paying now for the latest phone.
No, £158 a month. Wow.
Yeah, and a 24-month contract is a long time. If we were to take that back to the best 24-month contract, is Vodafone for that 256 gigabyte with unlimited data, unlimited minutes and unlimited text, is £103.50p per month.
The biggest one is £177 a month. O2, 512 gigabyte phone storage, unlimited 5G for 12 months, £30 up front, £177 a month. You could get a HP on a car for that kind of money, couldn't you?
You could do, yes. Yeah, so if you want to buy a Pixel Fold, I say you just buy it outright. Maybe just stick it on a credit card and pay that off as you can. If you take into account that you would have been paying £100 a month, then just deduct the amount that you're paying for your contract if you were to go to giftgaff for 3 or something like that, and it's SIM only, and then pay off the outstanding balance over 2 years. You might be better off.
Or save your money for 12 months, wait till the Fold 2 comes out, which will be much better anyway, and put the money in the bank with them giving you interest instead of you paying a credit card interest, and
Yeah.
just bide your time. In the meantime, using a Nokia 8110.
True. Or you could wait until Christmas or Black Friday or something like that, and maybe one of these will be a good bit cheaper. You might be able to get a discount and then buy it that way on a 0% interest credit card.
A good point.
Yeah, but you're going to have to pay through the nose to get the latest tech these days.
Mm-hmm.
Big time. Anyway, moving on. Threads, and we're not talking about the 1983 horror film. We're talking about Threads.
That was good.
The Twitter alternative that's come out from Facebook. And I wanted to know if you'd tried this, Ted.
And I wanted to know if you'd tried it, Gareth.
No, I haven't tried it. Well, actually, I'm going to throw this out to the listeners, because I've been wondering. It's been a long time since I did away with Facebook and Instagram.
Yeah.
And this has reignited my interest in possibly going back and joining that social network, because Twitter's not going anywhere. Twitter's an awful place full of awful people, and I'm following a decent amount of nice people, but it can be so unsavory, it's a bit scary. Reddit has pretty much closed its doors, and it's not a very nice place to be, given what's happened with Reddit over the last couple of months. So social networking, it's falling on its ass because of greed and corruption and all that kind of shit. And I'm starting to think that perhaps Facebook might be the lesser of two evils. And I want to hear from the folks who are listening. Is it? Has it changed since I closed the door on Facebook? Is it worth getting back onto Facebook, Instagram and Threads and having a right old time? What am I missing out on? Is it the better social network to be on at the moment? Because I don't know. I really don't. What do you think?
Threads has grown enormously since it was launched. Huge amounts of people are going there, but then they're bound to, because no doubt if you have a Facebook account, they're going to be, or an Instagram account, they're going to be pushing this at you at every turn. So all the billions of Facebook account holders are going to be saying, "Oh yeah, that's another nice looking thing. I'll join that," and sure enough, they have. From what I've heard from, and we linked to one person's review or one organisation's review in the show notes, they seem to quite like it. They seem to think it's, Twitter done nicely. But what they also conclude is that, this is the early days, and when they start flooding it with adverts and all the crap that goes on with Twitter, and people start doing the kind of things that they do on Twitter as well, who knows where it'll end up. I still say that Mastodon is a good option if you want to stay away from Twitter, and also, of course, our wonderful MeWe community. But that's a bit of an outlier. I do agree with you. I don't know. I'm not sure if I can pull the plug on my abandonment of the Meta group and give them all my data again. If you do it, I'd be interested to hear how you get on.
I do. I've always felt that closing down my own Facebook meant that I had to close down the Tech Addict side of Facebook.
Right.
And I've always felt really bad about doing that, because we did have listeners on Facebook. Both of them were really upset, and all they missed out on that little bit of interactivity and stuff like that here and there. But you see it on MeWe. There's quite a lot of people who post in the Tech Addicts group on MeWe, and I think we could find that on Facebook. But I can't bring myself to whore myself out to Zuckerberg again, because he left me unsatisfied and empty. And I did feel so wonderful when I closed down Facebook and walked away going, I know I'm missing out on stuff, but I don't care.
No.
I feel good.
And that's what I felt when I joined Mastodon, because I know I don't use it a huge amount, but I do feel like it's somewhere where not everyone is. And I know that there's pros and cons to being somewhere where not everyone is, but it just feels like it's done well and nicely, and you're not any minute going to get bombarded by some megalomaniac who owns half the world, which we'll come to later as well.
And also on Facebook, Francesca Gonshaw was my friend, who was Marie from Hello Hello.
Oh, right.
I missed that. She was lovely.
Oh, dear.
Right, moving on. NASA is recycling 98% of astronaut pee and sweat. on the International Space Station to make it into drinkable water. Now, I know a little bit about this because I have worked on ships. Mm-hmm. I worked on cruise ships back in the early 2000s. And I remember on a particular ship that I was on called it was either the Mazdam or the Staten Dam, which are not called those anymore. They are, I think, the Aegean something or other and something else. They had these machines. And I got to look at one, and the guy gave me a bit of a tour of the machine where all the toilet flushing stuff came down and into this machine and came out the other side into drinking water. Mm-hmm. And he said he just looked at me and he just waited out there. So the reaction of you going, "What?" where you realise I'm drinking someone else's wee. And he says, "No, it's actually cleaner than the water that we would normally get. If you get a bottle of River Rock or something like that, this water will be cleaner than that."
Yeah.
What? How? And he goes, this machine? It's like Willy Wonka's chocolate factory, with chocolate going in one end and nice stuff coming out the other. And I think that's what they've obviously put on the International Space Station. Now, this was 20 years ago, so the machine was big. Obviously now it's smaller, and they can put it in a space station.
It's called a urine processor assembly, and it recovers what astronauts pee with the help of vacuum distillation, according to NASA.
Well, I think it has to be vacuum because things don't flow normally when you're in space. No. So you can't just sit down in the toilet with the newspaper. You have to... What is it? You have to create a seal around your bits, and then things are sucked out of you.
Oh, I see. I think potentially the more interesting bit, though, is the bit about dehumidification, where they take the sweat out of the air. So 98% of astronauts that are sweating, that is also taken out of the air and turned back into the same water supply or whatever. It's it sounds like that bit is. Presumably you've seen the film Mars, where all this clever stuff is done by matey on Mars who's stuck there and no one knows he's there.
The Martian, you mean?
Eh?
The Martian?
The Martian, that's it.
I just bought that in 4K before the show.
Oh, wow, that's a spooky coincidence.
It is.
And he found, I don't know, I think that from what I gather, it is kind of similar to this, that he found ways of generating water from what he had there, and it's a bit like drinking seawater. It's perfectly possible to drink seawater if you evaporate it and do stuff with it. There's some interesting scientific stuff going on with water, and this looks interesting as well.
Didn't we have the UK built a big desalinization plant?
Did it?
For that, and it's not running at the moment. I remember it being in the news a couple of years ago, and I don't think it's running yet because it's broken or not finished.
Where's
or
that?
something.
I bet it's in Milton Keynes.
I got the impression actually it was on the west coast of the mainland.
Oh yeah, I suppose it would be near the water, wouldn't it?
Yeah. Right, okay. Folks, this isn't a big sciencey podcast. We'll just move on to something a bit more stupid for us to understand. Ted, what is the O/1 phone with e-ink display?
Well, this is on the back of what they're calling a new classification of phones called Essentia phones. And it's one of these attempts to kind of say, de-social media your life and blah, 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 and focus on your family and things that really matter. We'll help you by producing this phone which will not disturb you. However, this e-ink phone, which is supposed to be in the same bracket, when you open it up, it's just like any other smartphone. The strength of this is that it's got an e-ink display on the outside, on both sides, I believe. And when you stand it up, it looks like a travel clock and becomes a reminder device come clock, and you can set what you like in there to detox your life, it says. And it just becomes a multi-functioning device. And if you really want to open it up and use it as a normal phone, you can. It's got a display on the inside, though I'm not sure if it's I think it's probably an LCD display on the inside, but it's a flip phone, effectively. When you fold it up, it turns into a little square, and you can set it on your bedside, and it just looks like a travel clock. I really like it, and I like the whole e-ink thing. I wish more people were doing more with e-ink in the smartphone space. Don't you?
I do. Although listening to you talk about how people want to the social network their lives, I just remembered I went to the cinema last night to see, and we'll talk about that on Wednesday. There was an advert before the film for the Samsung Flip and Fold. Or no, it was just the Flip.
Okay.
Yeah, the Samsung Galaxy Flip. And it was done a wee bit in the kind of style of, I got a Friday the 13th Camp Crystal Lake type vibe, where the phone was so addictive that when you saw it, you had to have one. And people were running away from this. And I just thought, is this something that Apple's actually done? Because it's not complimentary of the phone, because, you know, people will just get sucked in and have to use the phone. Because it's so addictive and so sexy and so wonderful, it's the must-have thing. Yet, all the kids are going, no, we're up here to enjoy social activities and talking to each other and being one with nature and all that kind of stuff. And they actually jump into the car and start to drive away. But it turns out one of them has them in their pocket. And it's a bit like Invasion of the Body Snatchers or Invaders from Mars. You know, they suddenly become these zombified teenagers with a mobile phone as soon as they get their hands on the Flip. It was not complimentary, and I think it works toward a phone like this's benefit. Have you seen the ad I'm talking about?
No, I haven't.
I'll see if I can dig it up and stick it in the show notes.
Okay.
Because it's not a good advert, and it really makes you think that phones are evil.
Right. Yeah, because they're infiltrating people's lives when they could be doing ordinary human-based things, you mean?
Yes. Yeah. Enjoying nature.
Yeah.
Rubbing a squirrel's belly.
Yeah, well, but then again, Samsung shareholders will be all for it, and they'll be saying, yes, we want to sell more phones. Not that they need much help with flip phones, as I understand it, because they seem to be selling themselves.
Join the flip side, which is a play on join the dark side.
Oh, right, okay.
You know, from Star Wars and that kind of thing.
Right.
I found it, yeah, that's it there.
Okay, I'll have a look at it later.
Season 2. I'll stick it in the show notes so I don't forget.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so that's e-ink done. Next is more eyewear. Now, you remember...
Eyewear? You wear?
Yes, me wear, eyewear. You remember we spoke ages ago about these TCL Nextwear, NXT wear glasses.
Oh, yeah.
Which were kind of more like VR, AR, or whatever they call it this month. But this is slightly different in that it's a Nextwear S model, and it has followed Apple in a sense because it doesn't power itself. Now, Apple's Vision Pro thingy has got a power bank that you attach to your belt or something, or in your pocket. This one attaches directly by cable into your mobile phone or tablet or whatever by USB-C. And all it does is, instead of looking at your phone, you've got this pair of glasses on your head with a cable running behind your ear and down to your smartphone, which is just allowing anything that you see on your smartphone to be in front of you instead of having to look at your smartphone. It's a strange concept, which I'm not sure. The glasses have got speakers on the by your ears, so you can hear what's going on directly in that respect. And it's got a couple of control wheels and buttons and stuff, so you can control. You can cruise about the interface of the phone. But essentially, yeah, that's all it does. It costs £400, and apparently you can buy them now. and it just echoes the screen and your whatever's on your phone or your tablet or whatever in front of you. And is it 120 centimeters? I think it says that it makes it look like in front of you. And
Okay.
I don't know. In a sense, I mean, it's well priced, I think, for what it does. But do you want to have a cable running from the back of your ear to your phone just so that you can see what's on your phone in front of you in VR or AR?
Does it have to be your phone? Could you use it a bit like a Nextdock type thing, where you could maybe plug it into your Switch and sit and play games or watch Netflix?
As I understand it, it will work with anything that's got a USB-C a USB-C display port out. So typically that is some phones, for example, the Nintendo Switch has got a USB out, hasn't it? So you could use it with that. And the Evercade has as well, hasn't it?
It does, yeah. Because this would be kind of a nice addition to take on holiday or something. If you want to sit down and just get away from it. There's a picture of it hooked up to a Steam Deck.
Oh yeah, that's right. There is. Yeah. So yeah, interesting device. I'm not really sure who it's for, but I hadn't thought about that. Take it on holiday and get away from the family.
You don't have to take one of those portable monitors with you, or the bits and pieces that you use to hook it up to a TV, maybe in a hotel room or something. If you've got a few hours to kill before the plane, you just want to sit and play a game or something. Just
to mention also, though, that it's got no battery of its own. So if you unplug it from your phone or device or whatever, then it just won't work. It only works while it's plugged in.
I quite like this, actually. I think I would have one. I would make use of it. If you're sitting in the car, if you have your lunch in the car during the day, if you're at the office, I do that from time to time, where I'll maybe have 45 minutes. And I'll just sit with my tablet in front of me and watch an episode of Cheers.
Right.
This means that I wouldn't have to take my tablet with me. I could just stick in a pair of these glasses, and then you can use them as sunglasses when you're not wearing them.
Yeah, they do come with a clip-on pair of sunglasses in the box. So you can either wear them like looking like a tech nerd idiot, or you can put these sunglasses attachments on the front. But yeah, I think it's an interesting idea. I'm with you on it, I think. And it's so decently priced compared to what everyone else is doing. But it's not really virtual reality. It's just something else. It's almost a category of its own. I don't know if they're going to be made available worldwide, but it'd be interesting to see, wouldn't it?
It would, but I suppose it's not something that you need to plug in or charge or anything. So you could just buy the ones from the States, which are $400,
Yep.
And then there's a $20 off coupon.
Ooh. Woo-hoo. Can you buy them now?
Right. You can, yes.
Oh, right.
I'm not, but you can.
£310. Oh yeah, and a £15 token. So that makes it. Actually, that makes it £295, doesn't it? That's even better.
That's kind of good. Yeah, I like that. Yeah.
I'll
have a set.
Get one.
Maybe one day. All right, North America has debuted its first hydrogen-powered train up there in old Canada. And this is potentially quite exciting. This is I don't know if it's the first time we've seen an actual. I know Toyota have hydrogen engines that they're about to start really pushing out and getting excited about. We're on the cusp of a bit of a change, and these hydrogen engines are better, they say, than the electric engines that you see in cars and trains and things like that at the moment, and buses and that kind of stuff. But then they have to say that because they're not going to say, oh no, they're worse than the electrical ones. These hydrogen-powered trains are going to begin travelling across the Canadian countryside, which is Ontario, I think it is, that they're putting out. I think I saw that there. Yeah. Runs from Montmorency Falls in Quebec City to Bale St. Paul, which is a 2.5-hour trip. and the train can reach a top speed of 140 kilometres per hour, which is roughly about 87 miles per hour in proper language, and can carry up to 120 people, 120 Canadians, which I think works out to be around about 150 normal people in 2 passenger cars. Sorry, Canadians, I'm just joking. It's a French company, and it all looks really quite cool. I think this is innovative and looks great. I'm dead excited about this. I would love to be there. Ted?
What's interesting about this article from Engadget is that they've made the central point being that this has been done on a 3-month loan from the company. And in order to get it to where it's going, they've had to put the fuel in diesel-powered trucks. So what they're arguing is that actually this 3-month demo has cost the planet more than it's worth. I know it's only a demo, so that will change in time. But it was interesting that they said, yeah, actually this initially in this trial has cost the planet more than it was worth.
No, well, it's got to show off a proof concept and how this can actually run. Yeah. I do reckon of hydrogen engines that there is still a problem that I think will befall us all whenever it eventually comes to pass that hydrogen engines become, let's say, more popular than petrol and diesel, and that's that we're putting too much water into the environment. You know, because all these emit essentially steam out of their tailpipe.
Right.
And there's going to be like, oh, hang on a second, with the millions of cars that are on the roads, there's far too much water being put up there. So we're going to have to start, hanging dishcloths and things like that from the back of the car and then wringing it out into lakes and reservoirs and stuff like that.
Or stop generating water from people's pee.
Well, very true, yes, yeah. And it's not water that we can immediately drink. You can't go and suck on a on a tailpipe of a car or a train in this if you happen to be thirsty. Well, I'm sure someone could.
It might make it rain more.
It might do, which is kind of what we need for a while, but not. There'll be torrential floods and downpours, more so than we're having at the moment. Yeah. Anyway, that's just me scaremongering. Yeah. Never mind. Right, the world's fastest CPU has gone on sale everywhere in Europe, but it hasn't in the US, which I'm sure the Americans are pissed about. The EPYC processor has gone on sale, and it's you can pre-order it in several mainland territories in the Netherlands, Finland, Poland, Sweden, Denmark, Belgium, Finland and France. Not the UK. We are still part of the European continent, just not the European Union. And it's quite a nice looking AMD 128 core processor.
Apparently it supports up to 6 terabytes of RAM. This is clearly aimed at commerce and industry, and that this has nothing to do with ordinary people like us. This is for big business and people like Google probably that are holding data centers that need super duper processing. But can you imagine 6 terabytes of RAM?
Well, yeah, it is. It's targeted at the likes of Google and stuff because one of these processors costs around about $10,000. I think you can buy it in the Netherlands cheap at $9,400, but if you go to France, it's $11,221, which is quite expensive. I can't see too many people dumping these into their gaming rigs and expecting the best.
And that'll be a drop in the ocean to the likes of Google anyway. They'll order 1,000 of them and be done with it. And damn your
they'll have to order 1,000 motherboards as well to be able to dump those into.
There you go. Anyway,
I don't know what architecture it's built on. The Zen 4C architecture, which it's enhanced as well because it says enhanced. Well, it's a lot of money for a processor, but good on them. Good on them. We'll see them about this time next year, probably for about £300.
Yes. Yeah.
Excellent. Razer's first in-ear monitor has been built for gamers and streamers. And this is it's a IEM they call it, but it's a headphone, isn't it?
The reason I put this one in was that I thought it was a single earpiece, but it's not. It's stereo. There's two of them, and it is aimed at gamers and streamers because they reckon that it's so comfortable to wear. So what they've done, Razer have designed this thing with super duper ergonomics so that it fits in everyone's ear, because obviously everyone's ear is exactly the same shape. And they reckon that it's going to, people that are doing long sessions in front of camera or in front of microphone or gaming are going to have the most comfortable experience. That's about it, really. But as I say, I probably would have overlooked this, except that I thought it was a mono piece. And I think there's a place for a mono piece. All the time, when I'm podcasting, for example, I have now, I've got one earphone piece on my right ear, and the other one's on the side of my head, because I want to hear what's going on as well. If I had one of those, which was just a mono, one-sided, one-ear thing, I would use it, and I think that's a good idea. But it's not. So forget everything I just said, because it's not.
If this was what it wasn't, then I'd be very impressed.
How much is it?
Okay.
200 quid?
It's $130.
Oh, right. Okay. Not too bad.
It's not that bad. They're a decent-looking set of headphones. Yeah. I can't say I get too excited about it. I think most streamers will probably go, well, what I've got's working fine, so why would I change right now?
Comfort.
It is. But then I do feel for... I can't believe some of the lengths that people stream for. I bought a game a couple of weeks ago called Farthest Frontier, and it's a strategy game where you build a colony out in various frontiers in like a kind of America kind of thing, where you build a wooden shanty town type thing. And I was quite enjoying playing it, and I found it quite difficult, so I went online and decided to have a quick look at some YouTube videos to see if I could get some tips on how to balance the economics of the town. And I came across a guy who, or maybe it was a girl or whatever, but it was the most off-putting idea to sit down and watch their video, because it was 4 hours and 55 minutes long, where they streamed their entire gaming session. I was like, even gaming session, 4 hours and 55 minutes? Couldn't believe it. And they'd done it in one session. They have a little video of themselves down the corner.
Isn't that what that Amazon thing was set up for? What's it called?
Well, there's Twitch.
That's the one.
Which Amazon purchased.
Yeah.
But yeah, you can see Leela, who was on here as well. If you remember Leela.
Yes, I do.
Swanee.
The comedian.
No, that's Michelle.
Oh yeah, sorry.
One of the other babes we had on here such a long time ago, because this tech podcast is just up to its eyes and babes.
Middle-aged fat kids.
Yes. She's now a Twitch streamer, and you can go on and see her. I can't remember off the top of my head what her Twitch name is, but it's Swanee. You can find her online.
Right.
But she'll do that as well, where she'll stream for a reasonable amount of time, a sensible amount of time, because you need to get up and let your blood flow and things like that. But sitting in front of the computer playing a game for 4 hours and 55 minutes and then dumping it in 4K on YouTube is probably the reason why Google's going, holy crap, we're running out of space really quickly.
Right, yeah.
Crazy.
What they need is a £10,000 CPU.
It is, yes, and also the Twitch streamer's probably going to need a case of DVT, surgery or whatever, or medical help.
Yes, indeed.
Yes, right. Okay, moving on. Tech fans are now obsessed with buying tech over Netflix and socializing. That sounds better, doesn't it?
It's more up our street, isn't it?
It is.
And apparently, according to this report for Tech Radar, mind you, it is a Tech Radar research piece they did. Apparently, 50% of tech fans would cut their streaming subscriptions if they had to save money, and not put their gadget purchases on hold. They would before they had to do that, they would be stopping their Netflix and everything else they use, but they still want their gadgets. Probably not surprising to people like us, because we'd probably be the same. But the man on the street would think that people are addicted to Netflix and all the other stuff that you have to pay for these days, Disney Plus and blah 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 blah. But no, us hardcore tech fans would say no to that, and we keep away from other people, and we just make sure we've got our gadgets and gizmos.
Well, there is one short-sightedness that I suddenly thought of, and that was you go out and buy yourself an all-singing, all-dancing new television, and you bring it home, and you've cancelled all your streaming subscriptions, and what do you do with it? You end up sitting watching BBC iPlayer or something, or ITV, and you've got Come Dine With Me and Bruce what's-his-face on Strictly Ballroom dancing thing. No.
Part of this
you still need one streaming channel to be able to make the most of your gadget.
I think part of this is a reaction to what's going on with Netflix and other streaming channels that are finding ways of monetizing and getting more money out of people. But anyway, yeah.
As the prices go up and there's more and more streaming services, people have to cut back.
Yeah.
And I think maybe where they're actually cancelling things, they're probably jumping in for a month here and there.
Yeah.
Because it doesn't pay you to subscribe for the entire year. Mm-hmm. You can just sort of cancel Netflix this month and maybe take it up next month.
Yeah.
Maybe there's something on Disney Plus that you want to watch this month. And I think that's why they're going back to weekly deliveries of TV shows and things, so that people have to subscribe for maybe 3 months if they want to watch the new season of whatever. Yeah. But it actually, I suppose we'll maybe talk about it in Projector Room, I don't know. Disney Plus cut one of their films last week. If you remember, we watched the trailer for a film called Crater, which has a bunch of kids on the moon or on Mars, I can't remember which, running around and lampooning and having fun. And it cost $54 million, and they've got rid of it. There's no trace of it in Disney Plus. The only way, if you want to watch it, you have to go into torrenting or something like that and get it from there, which is crazy.
Yeah, what a waste of money.
Absolutely. Imagine being able to just write off $54 million worth of movie. Scary.
Mad.
If they were to give that money to Alan, you and me, we could have a bunch of crap podcasts.
We could.
For that.
We could. And live in the lap of luxury with popcorn and bottles of Coke coming out of our ears.
Ears? Rears? Yes, ears. Okay, next up is an 11.5-inch Honor Pad. The X8 Pro has arrived, and it arrived on the 5th of July. This is a good-looking Android tablet, which just 11.5-inch screen, runs Android 13, but it's also got the Magic OS 7.1 UI, which isn't one of the worst UIs to have on a tablet or a device. A full HD display, which is 1200 by 2000. I'll just read that out the other way around for benefit of people. 2000 by 1200, and it's 120 hertz refresh rate. It's good looking. 2.8 inch or 2.8 inch gigahertz, 2.8 gigahertz octa-core processor, Snapdragon 685, which has optional 4G and the choice of either 4 gigabytes or 6 gigabytes of RAM and 128 gigabytes storage, or there's an 8 gigabyte RAM version in the 4G model, and it comes in a couple of different colours as well. What do you think of this, Ted?
Do Americans spell grey with an A in it?
I don't know.
I've seen that a couple of times lately, and I've changed it when I post the stories. Gray. I think they must do.
I don't know. There is rules as to which way you can spell it, but it's, to be honest, it's a bit of a grey area.
One thing is not very clear about this is whether the Full HD resolution display at 1200 by 2000 or 2000 by 1200 with 120 hertz refresh rate is an OLED or LCD. I'm guessing that it's an LCD because they haven't said so. It does look nice though, and we were talking about Honor recently on the show a couple of shows ago, and these the stuff that they're pushing out, the Honor stuff, I think it does look quite interesting. I was a bit intrigued to see that it's got a Snapdragon 685. Now, we know the 695 because that's been put in a number of phones recently, including my Edge 30 Neo from Motorola. And it's also been put into a couple of forthcoming. I think that the Nord 3 has got one as well. Anyway, I wonder what the 685 is different to the 695. It sounds like it's very close in numbers, but perhaps the 695 has got 5G and the 685 has got 4G, and that's the difference.
Oh, yeah.
But anyway, the thing that I wanted to ask you about, to see if you had any insight, is what is that thing next to the camera? It's like a circle. It doesn't look like a flashlight or anything. I just can't work it out. Have you been able to blow that up to see what it is?
No, but I could do that. I actually thought that was maybe the LED flash, but they've done it in some kind of weird way. Yeah. Like it was almost like a ring light.
But it's like it's got this like texture. It's almost like it's just a bit of style and design. What does it say in the middle of it?
I'm just trying to find a decent high-res copy of the image so that I can read it out loud to all of you who happen to be hanging in there.
These are the important aspects, of course, of the new Honor pad. We don't worry about all the specs that people normally talk about. So what's that thing on the back?
It says AI camera.
Oh, right.
It's got an AI camera.
But why have they put it in that strange-looking, gritty ring thingy, which doesn't appear to do anything? I don't know.
Aha. I have found a website that talks about it.
Ah. Spill the beans.
Well, it's in Persian.
Oh.
So if I...
Is Persian still a thing? I thought Persian was a dead language.
Well, that's what Google Translate is saying that it is. Okay. But yes, Persia ceased to exist some time ago, around the First World War kind of time?
Don't know. I missed history. I missed that day at school.
Oh, right, okay, yeah. That's right. The teacher was annoyed that you didn't come in. I don't know. I couldn't say, and I feel sorry for people having to listen to me wither away.
Anyway, there's something strange on the back, and we don't know what it is. So if you have got any idea, dear listener, or can speak Persian, you can be a Persian translator, then let us know.
And we expect to know fairly soon, not in 2 weeks, whenever other people have noticed this, and then you go, oh, well, I think you'll find it's actually an AI camera. It is an AI camera, but what the benefits of that on an Honor device are
but where it says AI camera, or it might just mean, well, there's a camera to the right. But the AI camera is to the right. This is just a badge that says it's next to it. I don't know.
But we could find out that it's some sort of special sensor for an AI camera, in that it can add
depth.
Harrison Ford beside you if you need Harrison Ford added in beside you.
Of course, that's what it is.
Yeah, see? There, it's all worked out. Tech addicts making up shit again. Right. Google's now number 2 in Japan.
Oh, yeah. That's right. It's second only to Apple. And I was quite surprised at this, because apparently in Japan at the moment, 30-something% of all Google hardware is sold in Japan. Worldwide figures, 30% of it is sold in Japan. And it's overtaken their own beloved Sony, and there's lots of Japanese traditional firms apparently that are going to the wall. Little players like Sharp, well, they didn't used to be little. Sharp have not gone to the wall, but there are lots of these players out there in Japan which have done, and suddenly they've gone Google mad. and nobody seems to know why. Any idea? I put a link in the show notes to Martin on the Friday checkout, who also kind of scratched his head a bit about what's going on over there. They just seem to have gone and fallen in love with Google stuff.
No, I imagine their volume is probably quite small, so perhaps it's entirely a numbers game.
Well, it's 30% of their sales, though. As I say, 30%.
But if they're only selling 1,000 things a year, that's not very much.
Yeah, I also looked up the population of Japan to see if there was some logic there. I think part of it is that America is just so Apple mad, and they're being encouraged to be Apple mad. The population of America is about 300 million, isn't it? And the population of Japan, I just discovered, is 1.3 something million. 135 million. So there's not much more than a third of the population, and yet they've got 30% of the sales, more than America. Really odd. I don't quite get it.
But what are Google's total sales per year?
I haven't got those figures, no.
I think that's important. Apple's sales will obviously be massively higher. Google's are a bit more of a niche product. And then what would it be after that? Sony, perhaps? Or... You know, I don't trust certain figures whenever it comes to the likes of this, where Google says that a huge amount of their sales is in one area. That could be attributed to, you know, the was it unit per head or something like that, or what have you.
Disregard this story then.
No.
Obviously,
we'll carry
a load
on.
of absolute
Just making
bollocks. The US reported.
That's all right.
The US reportedly accounted for 31% of global Pixel shipments, although US shipments remained relatively flat year on year. Japan has perhaps I got it wrong anyway. 31%.
It could be down to this one device. It could be the Pixel Flip. Maybe they're only doing flip phones, not Flip Fold.
This is to do with 6A, 7 and 7A. Ship in the US. Japan. Yeah, Japan accounts for 34% of Google's global Pixel phone shipments. So it's not any other hardware; it's just Pixel phones. Sorry, Mr. Wilmot.
Yes. Well, Pixel's notoriously not very popular in America, and you struggle to find people who have Pixels. And I think whenever they see each other, I believe they hug each other in the wild. And it's the same with the UK. I tend to hug people. They run from me, but I try to hug them if I see someone with a Pixel. Whereas in Japan, obviously it's a wee bit different, and people are proud of what they have, and maybe they're proud of being hugged.
Nice.
Yeah. But South Korea is about to have the Samsung Galaxy Unpacked event on July 26th. So we'll still have another show between now and then, but we'll be able to cover more of what is rumoured to be happening just before the Unpacked event on the 23rd.
I think we know already, don't we?
Well, do speculate. Let us surmise what might be coming soon. Is Samsung going to horribly release another phone that's going to cause a cult?
I think that the wise money is on a Fold 5, a Flip 5, and the Tab S9 series. However, I wouldn't be surprised if they were trying to do something to counter what Apple have done with the Vision. What's it? The whole $3,500 VR, VAR, whatever it is.
Okay. Yes, they'll bring back their virtual reality things, which they haven't done for a while.
Yeah. So
since the S8 or S9.
There might be a surprise. The thing is that we're so used to getting everything leaked beforehand that if that was a thing, we probably would know about it.
I suppose so.
Anyway, we'll see.
Yes.
Tab S9. I'm completely satisfied with my Tab S8. And it works really, really well. The only thing that I think that they can change about that is to put OLED on the base model that I've got, the S8. But actually, as I've said on the show before, it is an LCD, but it's so good you just wouldn't know. But apparently the S9 series will be probably OLED across the range.
Yeah, and they'll all just be sort of nice little incremental updates. I don't think there's going to be anything that is particularly out of whack.
A silo for the pen would be nice. The S Pen, which currently sits on the back in that little kind of magnetic thing. If that was actually inside the device, that would be really nice.
It would be, yes, and I think with some of the hardware savings that they've had over the last while, losing the headphone jack and stuff like that means that they could potentially do that in the run-up. But that would be a real killer.
Yeah.
Because there's no reason why they can't do it. They've done it with the Note line.
Well, they would argue.
Would
argue that the pen, which I'm now retrieving from my side here, they'll argue that the pen that comes with the tab is actually quite fat, and it is. If I hold it alongside the device, there's no way you could get it inside. So the whole device would have to be fatter, or the pen thinner.
But they've done that before. What was it? What was the S4? Wasn't it? Had a really fat pen,
right?
Whilst the Note was out with its wee pen, where you push the button at the bottom and it would pop out. And they just need to marry those two together and find a common ground.
Quite right. You tell them.
No. Moving on. Excuse me. I'm just checking my balance or my levels there, making sure that they weren't falling too far. Sony's new sound bar is
intelligence, is it?
Well, yeah, I don't have any, so I can't level my intelligence. Sony's new sound bar is tiny, but features detachable surround speakers.
This looks lovely. Have you seen the video?
No, I haven't actually. There isn't a video.
Juan Carlos Bagnell did a YouTube review. He got one in early, and I'll link to that in the show notes as well, because he does a 20-minute overview of what it's about, and it looks just lovely. You know what I'm like with Sony stuff anyway, but essentially it's this kind of soundbar thingy, and you put it in front of you, and it's got a speaker in it, in the usual Sony way, made of this lovely Google Nest hub kind of material stuff, which is nice, but it's got these two speakers on top, which you just pick off, and you put them behind you, and you sit yourself in the triangle, and you get all this kind of reality audio 360 thing going on, and super stereo sound, and like you're sitting in the cinema. If you don't want to do that, put these two speakers back on in their holding places in the unit, and just use it as like any other speaker. It is quite big, but I can imagine, and it's not cheap. It's £550 on release. But I can imagine that it just would sound fantastic. And Juan was saying on his review that it does indeed sound great, and it works really, really well. And it's another tick to Sony, I reckon, for doing something interesting and different. A sound bar for your mobile phone. No longer you need to rely on crappy phone speakers.
Yeah, this is kind of a step up from the thing you have, isn't it, as well? It's kind of a logical evolution of that.
That's the TV speaker.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, except that it's not just for TVs. It's actually a Bluetooth speaker, which means that you can use it with anything. But I like the whole, sit yourself in the triangle and you've got this amazing sound. I'd love to hear it for myself to, obviously, check that it's a thing. But I think I trust Juan on this.
I do reckon this will be one of those things that people just don't get, and you'll probably see it tumble in price, a bit like the 360 or 360 spatial audio doofer that they put out. Was it 2 years ago? Or
Reality audio.
Yeah, and the prices fell on that.
Yep. Good.
Considerably. So you might get one in a year's time.
I quite fancy
the failed products.
It's just a bit lumpish. That's the only thing against it. It's not, it's not very sleek. If you were taking it somewhere with you, you'd know about it. You need a big holdall to hold it.
But it would sit nicely in just a small living room.
Yes. It would.
If you have an armchair, then you can benefit.
Yeah, but if you're doing that, you might as well just have a different kind of setup. The whole point about this is that it's not permanently in place. You're supposed to it's transportable, and you take it with you.
I see there he's linked it up to the Steam Deck, so he's playing a game. That would be cool on a train. Right, OnePlus Nord 3. That's coming out in 2 days. No, yeah, it's July now, isn't it? In 2 days' time.
I clicked through to the link that I put in the show notes there, and it said it's now not available anymore. They had this deal going on, but whereas if you bought it in July, then you could get the 256GB, 16 gigs of RAM version for 499 quid, which is, a bunch of money off. But when I went there last night, it seemed to have disappeared again. Can you see it now?
No.
Right.
No, it's not sure. Although there's something a bit screwy about it. It was announced on July 5th of 2023, and its expected release is July 11th, 2023. But it wasn't announced then. It was announced
2 days ago, which was the 7th, wasn't it? Because I watched the presentation. Or maybe it was the 5th. I don't know. Anyway,
did we not cover this before?
No, I don't think so. Well, we might have said it's coming soon. But anyway, all right, just in case we have, I'll quickly say that I really like the Nord 2, but I think they've ruined it this time by making it 6.74 inches of a device. Whacking great big device instead of one of the big benefits of the Nord 2, which was that it was significantly smaller. So bad news at OnePlus. Moving on.
Okay, we'll put them in the naughty corner for this week. Okay, but they are now going to be the OnePlus Open is happening, which is a new foldy type device from OnePlus. They're getting in on the game. Is there much call for this,
which we have,
or is it just another fold?
We have covered this one before for sure, absolutely definite, no question. But
I don't remember it.
I think the news is that it's coming in the autumn, but no one seemed to know when it was coming. But the news here is that they're going to call it the Open. So the OnePlus Fold, which we previously reported and talked about, is not the Fold at all. Although that image that they released when we last talked about it, clearly it is a Fold. Apparently leaksters have said they're going to call it the Open, which is actually quite a nice name, I thought, the OnePlus Open, something a bit different, and reflects the fact of what you can do with it.
Yes, yeah, it opens like a book. Yes, that's very clever indeed.
£500, please, at OnePlus. £500, that's what we want.
£2,000 more than likely. So the first phone with 24 gigabytes of RAM is arriving, and it's the Red Magic 8S. It also features the Snapdragon 8 Gen 2 in there as well. That is a little bit of a beast there, old Ted. Nubia have gone the extra hog here and stuck in a stupid amount of RAM. Not just a lot of RAM, a stupid amount of RAM. What else can we expect from this stupid amount of RAM phone?
I don't think it really matters. I think that's the point. The styling looks absolutely lovely. I do like the way that they arrange the cameras on the back in a line down the middle. That's nice. And they've got that multicolour LED thing going on the back. With trigger thingies for gamers, and if you look at the styling, it's just really, really nice. The 1 terabyte model, you don't have to get the 24 gigabytes of RAM model, which costs over £1,000, which is actually really cheap for compared to other phones. You can get a base model, which is 128 gigabytes and 8 gigabytes of RAM for half of that, like about £500. But suddenly, if you want the 1 terabyte version with 24, it's up to double the price. It looks really, really nice. Gamers will no doubt really like it. It still hasn't got a 3.5 millimeter. It has. I was thinking of the other bunch that took it away. It's not them, is it? It's this lot. So 3.5 millimeter audio out. Still no Qi charging, as I understand it, and we shall see how it sells, I suppose. At that price, it might sell really well, as long as it gets a global release.
Ted, we've just had an envelope from Mr. Wilmot. We've been going on about phones a bit too long.
Whoops. Yeah. Right, moving on. Next is... this is the tech giant. We referred to this earlier, didn't we? We don't get too political.
Oh, right, okay. I'll try not to. I don't think I looked at this earlier on. Okay. Oh. Tech giant gatekeepers must comply with all of the EU's new digital market rules. And that includes 7 companies, including Alphabet, Meta, and Apple, are to surpass 7.5 billion revenue threshold. Explain. I didn't read this.
Okay. Allow me to take the lead. 7 companies, which are...
Sleepy, dozy, grumpy... No, sorry.
Alphabet, including all the Google group, what's that? Amazon, Apple, TikTok, which is ByteDance, Meta, Microsoft and Samsung, have declared to the EU that they have reached the point of being what the EU new legislation calls gatekeepers. This is basically set up by the EU to say that if you want to trade in the EU, you need to, and you have a turnover of at least the figures that you just said just now, you have got to be declaring yourself and notifying us that you are a gatekeeper. And the gatekeeper status, which applies to those big tech giants, is essentially a way in which the EU are saying that if you don't control your monopoly and your grab on the market and your way in which you deal with particularly advertising, no doubt, then you won't go to trade in the EU. And so if you meet that criteria, you have to register any company that meets the criteria, and you will be considered by us as a gatekeeper, and so we will be inspecting you and make sure you do things nicely and properly, and watch out, woe betide you if you don't. And that's about it, really. It's the EU kind of just making their own rules up and saying to everyone, if you don't like it, then naff off and don't trade in the EU.
Right, okay. So, woe betide you in that your fines are going to be bigger than they were before?
They just won't let you trade, so they wouldn't do it, like they have with the BBK group in certain countries, just saying that you can't function in the EU member states.
Because they're too big?
Because they're not complying with the rules. But by notifying the EU and declaring themselves as a gatekeeper, they are saying, yes, we will comply. But as we've seen with the BBK group, the EU has got the power to just kind of not allow shops to sell stuff and not allow people to do stuff. So it's all kind of, Big Brotherish in a sense, really. But the consumer, I guess we should be pleased that we're not going to be ripped off by, someone having a monopoly and calling the tune. Not that we're in the EU, not that we're in the EU.
Well, yeah, I suppose it does beg our questions as to what the UK position is going to be given this. We kind of shadow some of the EU rules, and leaving the European Union took them with them, and they're sort of in the process of rewriting some of them so that they're a wee bit more beneficial to the UK's unique situation. But then this absolutely plays into the plan that old Mr. Boris Johnson wanted to very much avoid, which was the unique position of Northern Ireland, because we're kind of 1 foot in and kind of 1 foot out. So the Northern Ireland's really strange structure, which hasn't been fully defined, explained to anyone, is going to cause problems with this, because if they all move to Northern Ireland, then they can kind of pick and choose which rules they comply with between the UK and the EU.
Right, okay. I don't pretend to even start to understand about the whole Northern Ireland situation, but clearly you do, because you're in the middle of it.
No, we don't. We still don't actually know what we're entitled to. I know, look, a lot of businesses are looking at Northern Ireland going, hang on a second, they have both access to the UK market and the European market, but they have to meet the terms of the EU laws. And that's very attractive for most UK mainland businesses,
Right.
and they kind of want to come over here, and that way that they can sell not only to the UK but to the EU in the way that they used to before Brexit happened.
Right.
And because a lot of mainland companies are struggling because of all these new forums and things like that are required to be there. So it's better for them to headquarter here. And for these big companies, the likes of Alphabet, they would be better off just headquartering in Northern Ireland as well, because that way they only have one headquarters, central operations around EU and the UK, and eventually we'll just pull everything in. And Northern Ireland's GDP is going to go through the roof. But that won't be the UK mainland's GDP, it'll only be Northern Ireland's, because it's a really strange setup.
Okay.
And I think they've been, when Rishi Sunak arranged this, he was somewhat deliberately coy with the details, because he doesn't want to distract from the business arrangements of the mainland UK, because he knows that any company with their head on their shoulders is going to just jump straight across to Northern Ireland and have a better, more fruitful customer base. But yes, maybe I shouldn't blather on about that, because
perhaps
it's not
there's
the
a
most
Mr.
entertaining thing.
Wilmot shout out for politics as well here.
Well, possibly. But it does affect various different things. You know, there's certain things that we can't do in Northern Ireland, like order power banks from Amazon.
Yeah.
Is bonkers, but we could certainly harbour Alphabet in order for them to be able to save face with the likes of the EU rulings and the UK rulings.
Yes, indeed.
Anyway, moving on to the name of the game, where we'll talk about some video game stuff. Sonic the Hedgehog co-creator has been given a suspended sentence for insider trading. I missed this as well. I didn't see this one. Oh, I read the next one. Right, okay. What's happened to Yuji Naka? Who is
Yuji Naka.
Insider trading?
He's been done for insider trading, because apparently what he did was he knew that two companies were about to be floated, and that they were going to take off, and he bought all the shares up, basically, so that when they were floated, he got all the benefit, to the tune of nearly £1 million quid.
Ooh, right.
And so he's been done for it, and has been given 2.5 years jail sentence, except that he's not going to jail because it's suspended. And that's it, really. It just goes to show that you have to be careful if you are in business and you got inside information.
But then what happens to those two companies? Do they have to refloat again?
Yeah, good point.
With all the shares put back out again for other people to buy, or
good point.
Or what?
Yeah. A very good point indeed. Who knows?
Fair enough. And it goes to show that he got a suspended sentence for that.
Yeah.
Yet at the weekend there was a bloke who, he went into the Hilton Hotel in Belfast, pretended to be a resident, ordered £135 worth of food and drink, and went to prison for 2 months, and was fined a few £100.
Oh, right.
He had to do 2 months in prison.
Yeah.
But this guy gets the suspended
Yeah. Well, you could argue that. Well, what's he gonna, if he's in jail, how does that benefit society anymore? They're going to clearly stop him doing what he was doing, which was 2 years ago anyway. And what's the point of him being in jail, really? He might as well not be, because he can't carry on doing what he's doing. Anyway, the only reason we're talking about this story, which has turned into a legal wrangle, is because he invented or co-created Sonic the Hedgehog, which leads us nicely into the next story, which was much more interesting, which was that Sonic the Hedgehog and Mario from Nintendo are going to be released in the autumn with 2D versions again. This is good news for me. I really like this because I can remember back to when I used to play Super Mario World, and it was all in 2D, and I was absolutely loving it, and I've spoken about that before at great length. But then they brought out Nintendo 64, I think it was, and it all suddenly went into 3D, and I didn't have a bloody clue what I was doing, and it was all far too complicated, and frankly, it did my tiny brain in, and I thought, oh, for goodness sake, let's get back to 2D. So... And I think you'll agree with me. We've come from this world of Evercade now, and we'll both, I think, appreciate the fact that 2D is back.
We do. Sonic has very much struggled in the world of 3D, and only really excelled at 2D. Mario didn't do too badly in 3D. I think Mario 64 and was it Galaxy as well, or Odyssey, or I can't remember. There was another one that's generally hailed to be one of the best Mario games was a 3D one, but generally they are better off as 2D because it's just simple fun.
Yeah, definitely.
If you want a sprawling world to explore, you go and have a look at something that's designed to do that. You don't need to do that with Mario.
No, you don't. A simple platformer is just absolutely great. I'm really looking forward to this. And with that in mind, this very day, I was talking about selling my Switch Lite and buying a proper Switch so I can get it on the telly. This very day, someone in the group was offering one for 225 quid, and I decided to jump on it. I need to sell my Lite now to help pay for it, but very soon now I should be able to do this, and I shall be looking forward to these titles enormously.
Oh, yes, okay. It will be fun. I do wonder if, what platform are they actually going to? You put them out to the Switch, obviously, but then the big money's in mobile gaming. And will they have like a free-to-play version of it where maybe you have to top up every day to jumps or something like that? You have to buy a jump instead of a gem. And then you play the game and you've got 365 jumps and you have to try and do the level with... Oh, God, I'm describing something that's horrifying.
Yeah, definitely. I never thought about that. Back to Evercade, I think.
Yeah, I'll have to delete that bit in case they're inspired. Or I could have a nice lawsuit on my hand because they stole my idea. Heard it here first, folks. Heard it here first, folks. Google isn't done with online gaming. They are going to be possibly laying out a thing called YouTube Playables, which they're internally testing. And this sounds a wee bit more along the lines of Netflix's approach to gaming, where you'll be able to have a gaming option in YouTube and then play some Android games along there. I would like this to link in with Play subscription. That would be great. You could have full unbridled access to this if you've got a Play subscription.
Oh, right, yeah. Have you still got that?
I do, yeah.
Right.
It's just $5 a month, and I still find the odd game here and there. My son uses it all the time, so it's a good thing to have. This would really encourage that.
Definitely. So, yes, the Netflix model is clear that when you try to play a game on Netflix, you've got to download it from the Play Store first, and then once it's on your phone or device or whatever, you can then go from there with it. So it sounds like it's probably going to be the same here.
Yeah. It'll be interesting to see what happens there. But obviously they've decided this is the better way to go than the full Stadia. They went balls to the wall before, but now they're just going to eke something out and gradually build on it, which might be the more sensible way to do things. So, next up is Flap Your Trap about an app, where Microsoft wants you to move your Windows fully into the cloud, which is a deeply scary idea where everything will go wrong and life will be worse. Ted, tell me that you are not seriously entertaining this as a welcoming idea.
I actually don't get it, because I can't see how... Well, for one thing, it will probably take years and years to fully bring online, because there's so many people that have got Windows installations on their PCs that, in order to try and change that. It's going to take decades, probably. Anyway, I also don't get it, because, all right, in 5 or 10 years' time, everyone will be so fast, speedily connected to the internet that they could probably get away with this. But at the moment, I wouldn't stand a chance. If my Windows 10 or 11 was in the cloud and everything I did relied on that connection, Windows is not a sleek Chromebook kind of style thing. This is a complicated background, clogged down, bloated out Windows system, which they claim are going to... I just don't get it. I think, as I say, maybe in 10 years' time, but not now.
Yeah. I reckon it'll probably be some sort of special version of that's lightly constructed version of Windows, which is lacking every major feature, and they'll slowly put them in, and it'll grow as technology expands and as we gradually become more and more reliant on the internet in our homes, because it's there for everything. And it's, if you have a think about something like a Roku stick, it's got an operating system that is very small. It downloads apps that are very small, and it predominantly gets all of its information from online. Mm-hmm. If you were to apply that to Windows, you could actually make a bit of an argument for it, especially whenever it comes to office environments where someone is only using Outlook and Word and Excel, which aren't particularly demanding. They are quite demanding, but they should be able to do that. And people can do that with Google Docs, where they have a very, very small client-side install. So, you could just jump up to a cloud PC, and you only need a very small seed to be able to do that. But you won't be able to do most of what we do in Windows in the cloud for a very, 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 very long time.
Yeah, I tend to agree. But they seem to be rolling it out to some businesses at the moment to see if it works. But hopefully it'll be held off for a long time.
Yeah. But, we do have to change at some stage, and this could be the kind of change that we need, because every version of Windows has just been, a torn up version of the last one, reassembled. So this could be the first breath of fresh air into Windows in a long, long, long time.
I guess
it will work, but
well, I guess Microsoft 365, Office 365, or whatever it's called this month, that kind of works.
No, it doesn't. 365 is shit. Sorry.
It kind of works if you, like, for example, if you want to do it on a Chromebook, it works. Because the bones of it can work in the cloud. But I don't know. It's just like, you'd be all right with your connectivity in your house. You'd piss all over this.
I could do. Maybe I will. Maybe I will. I'll go drink a big bottle of water. Right. Okay. So if you don't have a Twitter account, you're going to have trouble reading tweets that have been thrown out there by various different people, because they are turning off the ability to view. A bit like, I think Instagram has done that. I don't think you can see Instagram accounts without having an Instagram account yourself.
Can't you?
I don't think so, no. So Twitter are doing the same thing, so you won't be able to see it if you're not a member of Twitter, which I do think is quite a good idea, but it's not a good way to get new customers. If you can't have a look and see what's happening there, see what the conversation's going on.
A bit like MeWe there.
Yeah, but the exact opposite of Reddit, where anyone can view Reddit. Yeah. But if they were to start doing that, I think it dries stuff up. Twitter's going down the pan. Elon, what are you doing? Yeah. Stop it. It was a good social network at one stage, but they just decided to, a bit like Reddit, just piss it away. Anyway. Next up is bad news for Plex. It seems that people are worrying about Plex. I saw this as well over in NAS Compares, and he's done a couple of videos about that. I've forgotten the guy's name over here. He's excellent, actually. If you're into NASs, go watch NAS Compares. Big, thorough videos that you can get into, and he'll twist your arm into them. But Plex is having some job losses. Plex is a streaming service for your home network that allows you to, I use it, and Ted, you use it as well. You can rip a DVD, stick it into Plex, and then be able to play it back on your whatever it is you happen to have, your phone, your Android TV, your Apple TV, You can install the Plex client there, and it all kind of appears a bit like Netflix, and it makes your own home version of Netflix. They also allow you to be able to stream a certain amount of free movies and stuff like that if you're in there as well. But recently they've been having trouble, and there's good reasons why they'll be having trouble, and I think I'm one of the main reasons. The people who believe in Plex were sold lifetime memberships quite early on to support the cause. And I bought one. I can't remember how much I paid, but it was maybe about £70 or something, and it got you lifetime membership to Plex and all of their features. And that was maybe about 7 or 8 years ago. And I've enjoyed everything since. It's become one of the most used streaming services I have in the house, and it's a reason why Netflix and Amazon Prime are second, because it's just robust and solid. And it really is excellent. It's very flexible. You can do an awful lot of stuff with it. But I haven't paid a penny to Plex since then. And Plex is then struggling with that. They do monthly subscriptions if you want to get the Plex Pass. I think there's a couple of different options for subscribing. But yeah, they're getting rid of the lifetime subscription, I believe. And it's just going to be another monthly £8 or £9. Yeah, that people are going to have to pay.
It's also people like me, though, because I have used Plex all the time since you've introduced me to it, and they've got wrong the cough up and pay us bit, because I don't need any of the bits that you have to pay for. So I just stream my stuff from my computer to my Roku via my router, and it just all works perfectly. I've got no incentive to pay them any money. So I think that Plex have got it wrong. They ought to monetize something that is actually central to the process. I think they might do better then, don't you?
I do, yeah. I've never investigated to see whether or not they have like a voluntary support thing, because I do feel that I've very much got my money's worth and more from my subscription. And if they were to turn around and ask me, would I consider donating some money to support the cause, and every other lifetime member with a Plex Pass, I reckon they'd probably find a lot of people who would gladly. I certainly would, because I don't want Plex to go away. Right. I rely on it. I know there's other options to it. I don't fancy them. There's Jellyfin and there's MB and there's a few other home media options, but I like my Plex, and I would happily donate again. I don't want them to turn around and say, you need to pay us £100 or this is going away. But if they were to ask for donations for those who have benefited from years of service, I would gladly put my hand in my pocket to keep the service going.
Perhaps they do, yeah. Well, that can be our homework. We'll have a look.
Yes, yeah. And I suggest anyone else who uses Plex consider it, because if it is such a good service, it really is, and it's not something that's full of ads. They don't chuck ads at you left, right, and centre, and it's simple and sensible to set up.
If you watch one of the programs that they stream for free, do they have adverts in them?
Oh, I don't know.
Yeah, nor do I. I've never done that.
I think I have. I think I did watch a film once, but I don't remember there being advertising.
Right.
But then I can't really say whether or not there's advertising, because I have a pie hole, and sometimes it cuts various bits of.
Okay, then I'll try it. I haven't got that, so that's more homework for this week. I'll go and stream a film and see if I see any adverts. Because if they don't, then that's yet another area where they could monetize it, which is what everyone else is doing. Even if they only stick an advert at the beginning of the film and the end of the film and not interrupt it, they could still do that.
They could do, yeah. Or maybe it's been cut out by various different ad blockers and things like that, and it's a very basic form of advertising that the likes of YouTube have, right, but Plex maybe don't have the know-how to be able to do that, or the ability to be able to do that. Anyway, we'll move on to Google Gallows.
Okay then, all Chrome users will see pop-ups in the coming weeks, which are all about sandboxing. Google have decided that third-party cookies are not a thing they want in Chrome, so they're going to basically sandbox everyone. Well, initially, that is going to be an agreement to do it. Their experience in Chrome into their own section, which they alone then can monetize by giving you all the adverts that they've got and all the third-party pop-ups that they've got instead.
Yeah.
So essentially, what Google are fed up with is that Chrome, and all this is going to do is drive people away to use things like DuckDuckGo and Brave and other places where you don't get all pop-ups and adverts. Anyway, that's what they're going to be doing. And I did get the first of those up, and as usual with me and Google, I just tend to click on everything and say yes to everything. And I've subsequently gone back to see if I can undo my yes, and I can't find out where, so they've probably hidden that well away. YouTube confirms that the 3 strikes for testing ad blocking is coming ahead. So for people that use ad blockers in YouTube, what they're saying is that the way in which they're going to organise the 3 strikes rule is that they're going to say, we're going to warn you if we see you using an ad blocker in YouTube. For 1, 2, 3, you'll get 3 warnings, and then after that, you'll actually get your account blocked. Not the Google account closed, but they'll stop you streaming. They'll stop you watching YouTube until you stop being naughty. So that's how they're going to be doing that. I pay for YouTube, so I don't see that. I'm not sure if anyone has seen that yet.
But you got to wonder if it's going to affect those that still pay for it as well.
Yep.
You know, if you're running an ad blocker and paying for it, you're still technically running an ad blocker whilst watching YouTube.
Yeah. I don't know how they're going to do that, really. They haven't threatened to close anyone's Google account. They just said that we'll block you from using it. So I don't know. Anyway, that's out there. Keep screen on. A quick reminder for Chromebook users who are bugged by the screen timing out, which caught me out again last week after I'd power washed my Chromebook and I forgot to turn it back on. It just turns it off. There's no rhyme nor reason as to how long it takes to turn off. I timed it to be about 8 minutes once, but I don't know. Anyway, there's now a setting which I forgot about in device power and when idle settings, and you can say, "Don't turn my blooming screen off, Chrome OS, thank you." We used to have a third-party plug-in to do that, a web app, but now it's built in, so you can do that. And also, you may have seen, if you have got Chrome up to date on your computer or your Chromebook, then you might see a button in the bottom right-hand corner of any new tab page, which opens up the customization options in your side panel to then make Chrome as pretty as you like by customizing it with all sorts of options. I made mine a nice blue colour, and it went across from my Chromebook and into my Windows and everywhere I use Chrome, except in Android, I think, where it's all now a nice blue colour. So that's out there. Link in the show notes to work out how to do that if you don't see it. But do you see it in your new tab page yet?
No, I don't think I do. No.
Okay, so if you open up a new tab, down the bottom, the very bottom right-hand corner, there'll be a
Oh yes.
See that? Well, if you click on that, it opens up the side panel, and you can then start colouring it however you like.
Something tells me that's been there for a while. I actually vaguely remember doing that before.
Well, you might have got it. You might have got it early, but I think in Chrome OS 1.14 it rolled out, which is why it was news for my section of Chrome Gallows and Chrome Coroner.
Oh, I see. Right. Okay. Well, that's acceptable then. All right. Well, that's about that for it's good stuff. I didn't know about the keep on thing either. I don't think I've ever had a problem with that.
So you're not bugged by it keep turning off when you're trying to use it?
Well, to be entirely honest, I don't use my Chromebook that much, but I am starting to use it. In the last 2 weeks, I'm using it an awful lot more because I'm able to turn off my desktop a lot more now that Plex has moved over onto my Synology NAS.
Yep.
So I'm using my Chromebook just for day-to-day stuff, which is kind of nice. So I am spending more time with it, but I'm not quite getting in. I did notice there was an update to Chrome sitting down there, but I was busy doing stuff, and I'm just like, I'll update it whenever I do. That was about a week ago. So I'll try and get to it at some stage. But yeah, it's more. It's not quite a toy anymore. It's actually been used.
Good.
It's weird.
Nice.
Okay, Harkback's going to be a little different this time around, because we're going to go back to doing something that we've done before, but
we're
from
harking
the
back to
community
harking back.
side. Yeah. But the community has sent in thoughts and love and praise for one particular item that we discussed whenever Sir Clive Sinclair passed away.
Oh, yeah.
And Ted, we could take it in turns. I'll start with AJ Santos, who spoke of the ZX Spectrum, and he tried to explain his ZX Spectrum to his son, and it didn't go well. This is a Guardian link. Sorry, yes, I remember looking at this now, and I can agree with this. I've got a couple of Amstrads sitting over there, and my son does ask about them from time to time. He goes over and plays with them, and I've got a Commodore Amiga too, and telling him about how things work. It doesn't just stop at television or at spectrums and things like that. Telling them about how things like television channels operated all those years ago is actually quite difficult. It's something we very much take for granted. Whenever you say that you had to sit and wait for a program to come on at 8 o'clock, and you couldn't pause it to go and make a cup of tea or go to the toilet, and if you missed the start of it, you couldn't rewind it back to see what you'd missed. That's entirely alien to him. It's like, well, you had to be there at 8 o'clock. You had to connect tape deck up to a computer and put the audio tape to load the game.
Mm-hmm.
And you could only have one game at a time, and it would take like 4 or 5 minutes to be able to load the game. It's really a learning curve for them that they can't quite grasp, because things are just not graspable. Even the idea of having only 2 games for your Nintendo Entertainment System, because you couldn't afford any more. You were stuck with those 2 games. And maybe in your lifetime, you during your childish lifetime, you might have only owned about 7 games. And my son's sitting there with the Steam collection of 203. You're like, how can you ever be bored?
And the story that's linked to in The Guardian, the guy, the journalist, is saying that his son just couldn't get, like, he was asking questions like, well, how do you connect to the internet then? Well, you don't. And how do you get stuff on it? Well, you've got to buy a tape or code it yourself. And this kid the son was like, what? You've got to be joking. And just didn't have any concept of the fundamentals of what you had to do, though, in those days, which is not really that long ago. So, yeah, worth having a read of that article if you have time, dear listener.
Absolutely.
Scott Brady chipped in to say, in 1982, I'd say the Commodore line, VIC, C64, was popular. Vic, C64, I've never heard of that, was popular in the United States. Scott lives in the United States. Data storage on cassette tapes, as you just said, Gareth.
The VIC-20 was one of the classics. If you look at it, you'll go, it's a Commodore 64.
Oh, right.
But it looks a bit like, they kept the design for the bread bin, the original Commodore 64, and then they put out the second one, which is a wee bit souped up and had a cartridge slot around the back, if memory serves. But yes, the Commodore line was always inferior to the Amstrad in every way. Yes. Adrian Brain wrote in to say, if you think of Apple/Android rivalry, if you think that's bad now, then the Spectrum, Commodore and Amstrad divide was brutal in the 1980s in the UK. It was absolutely. And I do remember how Commodore guys in the playground would clique together and they would look down on the Spectrum guys, because there was a good difference there. The Spectrum guys tended to know a lot more about computers, to be honest, and the Commodore guys would have the fancy machines. It was a bit like Android and Apple in that kind of way. And then I was in the middle with my Amstrad, and there was a good collective of us, and we were able to flip-flop between them, because every now and again Amstrad was better than both of them in some shape or form. But yeah, that's the rivalry that I grew up with, and kids today, they can identify it whenever you push that, but they tend to have both of them. You don't have that rivalry because people do have an Xbox and a PlayStation in the house, or they've got the Nintendo too. So that I think people tend to buy all three because it just makes sense to do that. That didn't happen back in the 80s. Mm-hmm. Parents didn't get you two, although I had a friend who had all three of them. He was the end, and more actually. He had an MSX and a Dragon 32 as well, the bastard. What did Chad Dixon have to say?
Chad Dixon said that he had one of these, a ZX Spectrum, but that was after he had the ZX81, and the Spectrum seemed like a jump in hardware, he says. So, do you know the differences between the two?
Well, yeah. One of them, the big significant difference. Obviously, the iconic Spectrum 48 is the one with the rubber buttons and the black and the rainbow colour on it, before it became a pride thing. The ZX81 and the ZX80, wasn't it? Were the ones that you kind of built yourself, and they were really quite basic. They had a no-frills keyboard. They cost virtually nothing. And they were hardcore computers, but you didn't know any better whenever you had it. And we look back at them now and go, that would have been rough. But at the time, I'm sure Chad will just go, it was the most amazing thing I'd ever seen. Yeah. Because I remember seeing one once when I was really young, and them playing a game on it, and it was so basic, but it was manna from the gods. I couldn't believe it. Just seeing this thing doing that, I needed to be part of it. I needed to be on there. What about Jeremy? Jeremy Hartham wrote in and said, I think the Spectrum was called the Timex 1000 in the US. Limited quantities, limited qualities as well. Reduced sales volumes, so couldn't compete with the Commodores. Yes, he's quite right. Timex did rebrand, actually, I think a couple of different computers over the years, and Spectrum was pretty much the British brand, and the British microcomputer was a thing of beauty at the time. I always attribute Nintendos and Segas and things like that more to the American side of stuff, because they tended to lap those up, whereas the microcomputer was very much a British thing. And we had lots and lots of different brands over the years, and the likes of BBC and Acorn and Archimedes and all those big names were all pretty much British.
Right, I didn't know that.
Yeah, it all sort of it dripped down from Sir Clive, right. Launching the Sinclair. Right. And the Americans did pick up, and both Amstrad and Spectrum tried to get in there, but they just couldn't compete. The Commodore went in, and it really just trounced them all.
They seem to have adopted Nintendo, as you say. Presumably, Nintendo was completely Japan to start with, and
it was, but they did play around. I think there was a Nintendo with a keyboard.
Oh, was there?
And there was it wasn't fully released. I think it was just a proof of concept.
Right, okay.
But there was a video I saw on YouTube recently where someone managed to get their hands on it.
Never heard of that.
Yeah.
Anyway, they flooded the market in the end in America, as you say. Troy Dial, he says that I had the 128K with built-in tape deck version. What a time to be alive, he says. I used to go to Woolworths on Saturday and buy a game for £1.99 with some of my pocket money.
Yeah. That was terrific, yeah. Going out and grabbing just the budget games, and then the high-end games were the ones that you dreamed about and maybe got at Christmas or something.
Or attached to magazine covers.
Yeah. But the Spectrum, whenever it was bought over by Amstrad, they made the Plus 2 and the Plus 3, and the Plus 2 was a bit more like an Amstrad. There was the grey and the black versions. And they had 128K on them, and a cassette deck, and then there was the Plus 3, which was 128K plus the 3-inch Hitachi disc that Amstrad insist on putting out there instead of the 3.5-inch disc. But yeah, the $1.99 for a game was a big thing, and you didn't care how bad that game was. And you were lucky if you knew anything about it. If it had been reviewed in a magazine, you just pick it up and look at the back and go, those graphics look quite exciting. And from time to time there would be graphics from another, the Commodore graphics would appear instead of the Spectrum graphics, because the Spectrum one would look crap.
Yes. Yeah.
Irfan Ali said, I used to get so religious. I used to also religiously collect computer and video games, as well as the Crash magazine. I remember seeing VG. I have a 48K version in the loft, plus a load of games, original cassettes, and a printer and a Kempston joystick interface. Yeah, I do have a 48K somewhere up here. I'm pretty sure it's over there. Not that you know where I'm pointing, but yeah, having them now, there was a cute little time where you could pick them all up dead cheap, but that time's long since gone. And I have a look on eBay every now and again just to see what kind of price they go for, and it's scarily expensive how these have just gone over the last 2 or 3 years. Yeah.
Did you used to get shareware? You see, my experience at this time was probably in shareware, playing about with Scions and stuff. And did you get shareware for the Spectrum or not?
Not really. No. You could get cover cassettes. I think they came along later, and you get maybe the odd demo or something like that on, but it wasn't big biz. The price of software was so low that you gambled, and there was no sort of regulations over it at the time. Okay. So you could just you could end up picking up some crap that didn't work properly, and then you just have to admit defeat and not buy that brand again.
Move on. Chris Jerry is next. The ZX Spectrum also stored data on a cassette, as we say. Fond memories of putting the cassette tape of my game of choice into the separate cassette player, pressing play, then waiting for what seemed like several minutes for the game to load, all while listening to the delightful screeching sound of the data being read. On borrowing one of the many game programming books from the library, spending hours proudly typing all the code, creating the actual game, which usually just consisted of some individual character moving around the screen, or stuff like that, very basic. So yeah, and I remember that as well. I didn't do it on the Spectrum, but I did it on the BBC Basic, and you're quite right, buying magazines, I think we've spoken about this before, buying magazines, and just typing out the code line by line, all the go-to I've forgotten it all now, but I used to be able to do that, to just make a basic stick man and a ball bouncing or something.
Yeah. The Basic was one of those things. You could buy books, entire books, and that was basically like shareware, I suppose, where you bring it home and you type it in. You spend most of your afternoon typing and have a crap game or some sort of utility that you could use. That probably worked after a large amount of debugging because of your typos and things like that. And you think about the amount of typos you make on these ergonomically produced keyboards. You go back and you have a look at the ZX81 that Chad had, and you have to type in some sort of typo on that, and your fingers will be killing you by the end of it, and you've made countless mistakes. But you knew nothing better. Mike Robbins has recommended the Nostalgia Nerds look on his YouTube channel at the ZX Spectrum story and his review of it, and I remember watching that quite some time ago. Pete does a pretty good breakdown of everything that's happened, and he's done all the old 8-bit computers as well. That's worth checking out. But one of the things I do love, and I haven't seen too many people talk about it, is on YouTube every month. If you search for the Spectrum Show, there's a fella, I can't remember his name. He's Paul Jenkinson. Does the Spectrum Show every month, and it's just a half-hour show of what he's been dicking around with on a Spectrum. It's all divided up nicely into a little magazine, and each segment is beautifully done. He maybe does a type in, or he plays a game, he gets a piece of new hardware, he reviews it and he talks about it. So relaxed and lovely. And he's got news section and a review section and things. Beautiful. He's up to episode 130. He's been running for years. I fully recommend that to anyone who just wants a real dose of nostalgia, and you can go through and just have it playing in the background while you're working or whatever. It's a lovely, lovely show. The Spectrum Show.
Spectrum Show. Okay.
Yeah. It's good stuff. Good stuff. So that about brings us to the end of the hardback.
It's nice to visit that again. Not necessarily the Spectrum for me personally, but remembering all those BBC days and typing out and that sound coming out of cassettes. It's all real nostalgia, isn't it?
It is, yeah. And I was thinking about that yesterday morning, I think it was, when I saw we were going to be doing this again. The sounds and the graphics of each of those 3 8-bits. Whenever you look at the Commodore, the Amstrad, and the Spectrum, you can tell them. You know, whenever I watch a review of something that's just come out in the Sinclair Spectrum, you hear a sound effect that's being used, and you go, "Oh, that's the Spectrum." You know that's the Spectrum because of the way it sounds. Because it and the Amstrad have very different sound chips inside them, and the Commodore again. But even whenever you look at the imagery, you can tell which is which. Nowadays, I never thought about this as a kid, but if you can tell a Commodore 64 screenshot because it's kind of like a muted pastel color, which has the greens and the browns and maybe some purples, whereas the Amstrad will be a lot brighter and more vibrant, and then the Spectrum will have a massive amount of color clash to it, or just be black and white. But it goes for the same with the sound as well, and you can tell them apart, and I think that's actually kind of nice.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, and Amstrad was always dealt a poor hand because it was always an inferior port of just the Spectrum version with some colour in it, so it ran slowly and it looked crap. Yeah,
very good.
All right, bargain basement, and then we'll have to bring it to a close because it's 20 to 2. Flipping heck. And we're 2 hours and 5 minutes in. Okay, bargain basement. First one is the Lenovo Tab P11. Which is the 2nd gen version, and it's currently on sale. Probably something to do with the Prime Day, or they're just having a big sale at the moment. And it's down from £224.89 to £189, which is the lowest it's been for a long time. It's only 16% off, but if you're needing an Android tablet, that one's fantastic. It's got 6 gigabytes of RAM, 128 gigabytes of storage. I think it takes that model maybe has an SD card as well. And it runs Android 12L, and it should hopefully get Android 13 fairly soon. It's an octa-core with 2.2 gigahertz in there. It's a lovely tablet. I have the 1st gen, and I use it regularly, so I was considering the 2nd gen, but I don't know, it's not the Plus. Yeah, it's a good-looking tablet. Recommended.
Yeah, they got 12L because they were able to dabble with the new landscape stuff in Android.
That's right, yes.
Good stuff. So, yeah, very nice. There's a Jackery midsummer sale going on at the moment where all those lovely power packs and power thingies are 40% off. And, yeah, there's tons of the stuff going on there. Not everything's 40% off, but all those solar panels and power banks and, all that off-road stuff and Lost in the World stuff up to... I should say 40% off. Jackery UK.
Yeah, there's a particularly big sizzler deal which I've hovered over for a while there. There's a competition you can win enter or to get more money, but the solar generator 240, the 80-watt version, comes with the solar panel on the Jackery unit, and it's down from £469 to £286 and 9p. That's fantastic with the solar panel as well. Lovely. That would be amazing. And just a backup in case all things go pear-shaped and Putin or Litvinenko dude decide to fire off those nukes. You've got this.
Yes, indeed.
That could work. Reolink is a little camera brand that I've been researching. Apparently it's one of the best that you get for Synology NASs. And this one works with the Synology NAS application. Yeah. But I quite fancy this one because it's a pretty good looking setup where it's the Reolink security camera. It's outdoors, it's wireless, but it features a solar panel as well to charge it, so you don't have to run power to it. and it works off of both 2.4 gigahertz and 5 gigahertz Wi-Fi. So you can basically stick this anywhere as long as it's in the sun. And it'll charge the battery inside the camera, which it'll operate off, and then you can also pan and tilt it. It does 2K night vision, which is quite nice. Some of the images that are in the reviews don't look great, but I think whenever it comes to a camera that's fully solar powered and doesn't require an extra power cable going out to it, then I think you would happily make a little bit of a concession whenever it comes to image quality, because, you know, say for example your house is getting burgled, one of the things they could do is just turn off your power. This will still kind of operate, obviously not off Wi-Fi, but it'll record it to SD card if you need to, and still operate if the power's out. So I ordered one.
Mm-hmm.
And it'll arrive tomorrow.
150 quid.
Yes. Well, 150 quid, but there's a £30 off voucher. It was £160, reduced down to £150, and then there's a £30 off voucher that takes it down to £109.99.
I'll tell you what jumped out at me with this one is how solar panels no longer look like solar panels. That looks like it's black, and you expect solar panels to be all looking like glass, but times have changed, I suppose, and now they've made some sort of grippy material on that, haven't they?
They have, yeah. I wonder if it's a sort of keeps clean type panel.
Okay.
I don't know. I'll investigate it whenever it arrives and see how it works. I had one of these before, but it didn't work very well because the Wi-Fi in it was wick. But that was a Blue Rams one about a year ago.
Okay. Did you see the Logitech Logi Dock that came out this week?
I did. That's cute.
It does look nice, doesn't it? It's an all-in-one USB kind of docking station thingy, but the killer feature here is that it's got its own speaker, and apparently the speaker's really good. It's not cheap. The RRP is 550 quid. Amazon are selling it for 371 at the moment, which is why it gets into bargain basement, I suppose, but it's brand new, and it delivers straight away. And it just looks really good. It's loads of connections to do whatever you like with around the back. Just a hub for your computer to plug everything into. And as I say, the added bonus that you've got the speaker built in, which sounds like it's going to be very good. It's got the usual Logitech quality, the cloth material around it, and looking at the back of it, all the plugs and the sockets and the buttons look beautifully made. I really fancy one of those, and $371.92. So not cheap, but very good.
Is there a light on it as well?
A light?
Yeah, there's a couple of shots where someone's pointing their finger at it or pressing the button, and there seems to be white light coming from beneath it.
So there is. It's got a light on the bottom base, the front base, isn't it? The front bottom. Yeah, because
I don't see it listed.
It wedges itself up, doesn't it? Yeah. It must have a light on it. That picture wouldn't lie. They wouldn't tell us fibs. If you look at the first picture of it, you can see that it wedges up at the front, and it's got another power port on the side of it as well, right down the bottom there. It looks nice. However, there is a cheaper option, which I also discovered, which is a Dell HD22Q, which I'll also link to in my notes for the section. 106 quid, down from 150 quid. And the killer feature of this one, the other one is the speaker, is that it's got a Qi charger in it as well. So a desktop docking station with, again, more ports and stuff to plug stuff into that you could throw a stick at. But it also sits up in front of you as a Qi charger, and that looks really, really neat as well. So two choices: one expensive, with a unique feature, or a cheaper one. I do like Dell stuff. I like the Dell name. They tend to make things properly, I think, and lots of options. The only thing I did notice about the Dell one is that it's got its own, well, probably the Logitech one has as well. You've got to use their own charger to power it, which is a bit annoying, but there you go.
I was looking at thinking that was just like one cable coming out, but then I see you'd have another cable coming out of it, and then you'd have Ethernet coming out of it, and then 2 USBs and 2 HDMIs. So this is quite a light device, and that there's 2 USBs, or there's 1 USB-C on the side and 2 USBs on the other side.
And on the end of that cable, there seems to be a female USB-C. So I'm not quite sure if you can alternately power it via there. Maybe you don't need to use their own adapter to power it. Don't know.
Yeah, it's always when you quite like this idea up until you have all the cables sticking out of it, and then it looks like an absolute mess and an eyesore. Because I've got one of those around the back of my Chromebook at the moment, the U-Green one, and I've got a few things plugged into it, and it's like, that's not what it looked like in the picture. I've got all these cables running along the desk. I hear this. I want rid of this.
Yeah. You need to have the right setup on your desk.
Yeah. All right, next up is cheaper than on the Google store, is the Google Pixel 7a, and this includes the Pixel 30-watt charger bundle, because you don't get one in the box. This is on sale currently at the moment, as reduced from £450 down to £399. Bang on, not 39999, 39900 I'm talking about there, you know. And it's a good-looking little device. I think £400 for this, plus the charger, which should have been included in the first place, is rather good, because this is fairly new, I suppose you could say. What do you think?
It is, except if you don't need the charger, it then becomes the same price. So, yeah, this will certainly appeal to the person that does need and want a charger. How much is it without the charger? With case, with buds. Oh, look, you can also get it for, or I can, £79.80 for 5 months in a row. No, you can't. They're not selling it without the charger, are they? Oh, yeah, no. I know it. Oh, no, the buds and the charger. Yeah, okay. Okay, I guess they're assuming people want the charger.
Yeah, you need a charger to be able to charge your bloody phone. And it's a 30-watt charger, so it'll take the most out of the quick charging.
Indeed, very nice indeed.
Okay. Next up is one that was spotted by Ian Barton. It's the Crucial P5 Plus 2TB M.2 NVMe gaming SSD. This is obviously a 2TB drive that you put inside your computer, and I think this might actually be compatible to PlayStation and the PlayStation. It's Gen 4, isn't it? So it might work there too. But it's a 2TB drive, and it's down from £236 to $99.99. That's 58% off. Nice one, Ian. Good find. If you have need of one of those, then it'd be great. You could even stick it into a Synology NAS too. Although I have to say, I bought it was a wee bit cheaper than on Amazon. I bought a 500 gigabyte Crucial NVMe, just before the last show, and it finally arrived 2 days ago on Friday, from Crucial's website, and it was sent 24-hour tracking by a Royal Mail, and it went everywhere in the world before it got to me. I don't know, it must have taken a wrong turn whenever they put it in the post office bag or something like that, but it took 2 weeks to get here, and not a dicky bird from Royal Mail to say what happened, but I was able to track it on Crucial's website.
Was it in Persia?
No, it didn't go to Persia. That's one of the few places. It would have been have to travel back in time, obviously, but then that's what Indiana Jones does. It went everywhere. It was a bit embarrassing, to be honest, but it eventually arrived, and I quite enjoyed the trip. Then there's the 1 terabyte version is £49, so that's 42% off on that on Crucial. That's the MX500, that's a 2.5 inch, isn't it? Yeah, it is. It's not an NVMe. Right, okay, yes. So good deals from Crucial, worth checking out.
Very good indeed. Thank you, Ian.
That's about that. My wife's been stomping up and down the stairs because my lunch is ready, so I have to go. All right, so if you want to get in touch with us, you can by emailing us at gareth@techaddicts.uk, and you can find us on Twitter as well. I'm on Twitter at Gareth Miles, GarethMyles, and then I'm also on Mastodon too. And you can find links to where you can get in touch with me if you can't remember any of that on garethmiles.com. Ted, what about you?
You can find me and everything I do at tedsalmon.com, and if you want to buy me a coffee, it's at paypal.me/tedsalmon to support what I do, if you're not sick of my voice by now.
I feel that too. I don't want to talk for the rest of the day after doing one of these. All right, well, listen, take care, folks, and we'll speak to you in 2 weeks. Have a lovely weathery time with weather. I'm sure it'll be nice, and then nasty, and then nice, and then nasty. All right, take care now.
Bye.